Okay, so this is going to hurt. Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor by Adam Kay is a non-fiction account of what life is like as a junior doctor working in the NHS in England. It is the sort of author's personal account / diary of everything he went through as a junior gynecologist. It won several awards. It is one of the most popular non-fiction books currently on the shelves at your nearest airport. It's popular. People like it. I was recommended this book by a friend because we have similar political views about the NHS and its and the cuts it has undergone under the Tory administration. We both think, to clarify, that the Tories deserve to rot in hell and that the cuts to the NHS are a bad thing. So I kind of went into this book thinking, I'm going to really like this. I like nonfiction. I like do I like the NHS? I like free healthcare, and I hate the Tories. So that's all sort of winners. And I read this book like 2 years ago and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. I've written a very long Goodreads review. I've written a blog post about it. Anybody who knows me knows how much I fucking hate this book and Adam Kay as an author, like specifically. We'll get into why that is. I'm poisoning the well a bit here, I guess, by saying that at the start, but it's fine. I don't care. This well is full of botulism. So I wanted to talk about this book and medical apathy. So we're going to get into that now. So I really wanted to like this book. I went in with really high expectations. And, whenever I initially talked about this book, I would start with the things that I liked about it, which are still kind of true. I think it does give really cogent analysis of how shit Tory privatization has been for the NHS. I think the account of what it's like to be a doctor currently, about being overworked, underpaid, understaffed, its criticisms of the way the system is currently run are good. They are correct. And it is an interesting read in that regard. This book also taught me about several different hospital terms. It also taught me maybe never have a baby. I maybe mentioned this. Adam Kay worked in gynecology. And we'll get into that. Because I've worked in the NHS. I spent the last year working in a GP office in the reception. And I know from being on TikTok and having these experiences myself that the GP receptionist is the demon, the most hated person in the world for good reasons sometimes. I myself have really struggled to find appointments and have been on the other end of the phone with a really snarky receptionist who didn't seem to know what I was after and was withholding it. But I've also been the other end of the phone. And it is hard as a job. It was cushy compared to before that, I worked in bars. So it's cushy compared to that. I got to sit at a desk. Sitting down at a job is nice, I will say. And I was also working 8-hour days, 9 to 5 all week. So really consistent, which was nice. But the thing about the current state of affairs in the NHS is that cuts to services have hit GP surgeries really, really hard. So I myself have been a patient at 4 different GP surgeries that have shut down, and then been moved to another GP surgery which was further away and massively oversubscribed. The GP surgery I worked at had upwards of 23,000 patients and maybe 10 or 12 doctors. It's not enough. And there's not a lot we could do about it, really. I mean, this was the worst part of the job, and it's why I quit, because it was depressing having people who were genuinely sick and needed help calling up and saying, can I get an appointment? I found a lump. I'm depressed. you hear the full range of lots of things can go wrong with the human body that I did not even know about. But these people need appointments. We know they need appointments. The NHS website is telling them that they need an appointment, and we don't have any for 2 weeks, if not more. And you're the one who has to tell them that. And it sucks. It fucking sucks. It's like soul destroying. I'm not saying it was a bad job. I had a lot of fun sometimes. I did a lot of stuff, like, because obviously it's in the past year. I worked in a lot of COVID vaccine clinics, which was great. Like, that was so rewarding personally. Just great talking to all different kinds of people coming to get their vaccines. That was fantastic, and I felt like I was helping out. But you get a lot of abuse, which I can't be mad at, because people call because no one's calling a GP because everything is going 100% right. Do you know what I mean? So anyone who's calling and frustrated and taking it out on you needs help. And I think that's important to acknowledge. I personally didn't like to get too angry at people who called and maybe were curt or whatever. It doesn't matter. I can move on with my day. They need help. Not every GP receptionist is like that. Not saying I'm a saint. I'm sure I had my bad days. But Christ, I've personally called my GP and had some stinking conversations, so I know what it feels like. So again, I know what Tory cuts look like. I've got many friends who have been trying to access vital medical care in the UK for years and can't get it. You try accessing gender clinics now. Great, that's a 5-year wait. Try getting an adult ADHD referral. Good luck with that. My own struggles with mental health have just been like a nightmare of different medications, different doctors. I personally, and we're going to get really into the weeds here, have struggled with problems with alcohol. I went to my GP about this, and the result of that was like a 3-month wait and then 6 Zoom sessions where, it was good. Those 6 Zoom sessions were good Zoom sessions. But it's hardly effective therapy, especially because I couldn't log into one of them. So I actually only got 5, but that's beside the point. This is all beside the point. I'm not talking about me, although I have just overshared. I'm talking about Adam Kay, who is, by all accounts, a very annoying man to work with, apparently. And you know what? That does come across in his writing. He does sound like it. So my biggest thing, right, is I read this book, and afterwards I couldn't help but wonder why anybody ever goes to the doctors. Like, Kay is dismissive of his patient's physical pain. He's exceedingly condescending. And I do understand that gallows humor is a coping mechanism that is often necessary for anyone working in medicine or, things like mortuary science. You kind of have to have a sense of humor about it, otherwise it is soul crushing, I would imagine. But there's a limit, I think. If I found out that my doctors were saying the things about me that Adam says about his patients, I'd be making complaints. One of the things that is most grating about this book is his voice, Adam Kay's voice. He is unbearable. He's condescending. He is posh without knowing it somehow. There's a whole section of the book where he mocks another woman and her child for being posh, despite the fact that he is admittedly private schooled. His entire family are also doctors. They regularly go skiing. Not to say that there's anything wrong with going skiing or being doctors. There's a lot wrong with private school. Not his choice, I suppose. But it sours it for me because he follows this sort of whole thing up. He's complaining about his hours, fine. He's complaining about his pay, which this is where we have a bit of a disagreement. Do I think doctors should be paid more? Yeah, I kind of think everybody should be paid more. It's really hard to afford anything at the moment. But in the grand scheme of things, doctors make more money than most people. The lowest salary for a junior doctor is already higher than the national average wage. And he compares his salary to that of a McDonald's worker. And I had to check, right? Because I was thinking, oh, maybe he does actually earn that much. And the lowest you can be paid for a junior doctor, so if you're an F1, your salary is just shy of 30 grand. McDonald's employees earn about 10 grand less per year, and that is if they never get sick, they never are off work, that is if they get consistent shift. They earn 10 grand less if they are the platonic ideal of a McDonald's employee. And that's what Adam misses here, because he says, oh, I earn as much as a McDonald's worker. And even if that was true, even if, say, they did earn the same amount of money, Adam is a medic. He gets consistent hours. He gets his rota 2 months in advance, something he complains about later, which I just think, as someone who's worked in the service industry and didn't know if they were working the next week, is just baffling to me. But he also has a union, a strong union, and he has prestige. Not to mention family wealth. There is no situation in which his wage as a junior doctor is at all comparable to the hourly rate that McDonald's workers get paid. There's not a salary even. He gets salaried. That's nice. He has strong enough unions historically that he probably can't lose his job without there being investigations into it. Whereas anybody who's worked for McDonald's will tell you it is hardly secure employment. It's snaring. It's tone deaf and upsetting. I don't know. Especially when you think about the comparative pay between doctors and nurses, or doctors and midwives. He has this whole thing about the midwives and nurses that he works with, and he is unbelievably condescending. His time is more valuable than theirs. His opinion is more he's a doctor. He knows more about it in theory, but have you ever been to the doctors and you need a blood test done and they don't have a phlebotomist or a nurse, or you end up having your blood test done by a GP? It's always the fucking worst it could ever be. They always hit a nerve. They need several tries to get a vein because they don't do it as often. Practically, medics don't tend to do as much as nurses do. They have different roles. And nurses, if we're going to talk about bad pay, nurses earn nothing like what doctors do. Nothing like what even junior doctors do. It's if we're going to talk about injustices in payment in the medical profession, that's probably where we should start. Or even further down the chain with porters, who moves your patients. He's got blinders on this entire thing. See, I read this 2 years ago and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. This book plagues me. The class stuff aside, which is bad, I think I've made that clear. The worst stuff is his pure dismissal of his patients. And this is where him working in gynecology really sets my teeth on edge. The way he talks about his patients makes my skin crawl. This makes me never, ever, ever want to get a checkup again. There is a section of this book where he talks about a woman who's complaining about pelvic pain. And the tone of it is that she's inconveniencing him, that she's lying. She gets physically violent in this scene, and it is sort of framed both as something you're meant to laugh at and sympathize with Adam K. If somebody is complaining about pain and when being ignored by a doctor becomes physically violent, I personally would believe them. People don't lie about pain. It's really rare. And the fact that he's was in gynecology is very concerning when you sort of if you look at statistics surrounding reproductive and gynecological health in the UK, it's not great. it's got a long way to go. Like 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss during pregnancy or birth. That could be like a really early miscarriage, obviously, but that's a lot. Between 2015 and 2017, 209 women died during or up to 6 weeks after pregnancy. So it's like 9 women per 100,000 who died due to causes associated with pregnancy. It's still way too high. And the numbers go even higher if you're black. And it really hits a sore spot for gynecology because, you know, it is one of the areas of medicine where you see the most disparity, not just between gynecology and other fields of medicine, where it does have some catching up to do, but even within it, like, if you're white and reasonably well off, you probably aren't going to have any issues. But in the UK, babies from a black ethnic group have the highest rates of stillbirths and infant deaths. Babies from Asian ethnic groups consistently the second highest. Like, medical negligence isn't funny. And I get that he's writing a comedy book, but he doesn't distinguish between which stories in the book are for comedic effect and which stories are entirely real. So it feels fair to me to take everything in there as something that actually happened to him. And so reading a story about him not taking reports of pain seriously from a patient is upsetting. I don't like to read it. You know, what is the statistic? Like, it takes 7-9 years to get diagnosed with endometriosis because of precisely this. Like, I'm not saying that all of the problems with gynecological medicine are Adam Kay's fault, but he's certainly a part of it. Was a part of it, I guess, before he quit. Why am I making this? He's getting a TV show, so you can if you work hard, guys, you too can go to a private school and then do gynecology because you think it's easy, and then quit and then get a TV show based on your horrifying book. Am I too serious about this? Maybe. But there is a long history of people, particularly people of colour, whose symptoms and complaints of pain are ignored and have health complications down the line because of it. So it's a little bit grim for me to see that, like, there's a fun new comedy show featuring Ben Whishaw. I think a good version of this book can exist. I mean, if you've seen the sort of, and again, not to call this an airport book, but if you've seen any shelves at like W.H. Smith, this book launched a whole genre of medical nonfiction from people working in the NHS. Sort of, you know, and not just junior doctors, like nurses, midwives, other doctors. I haven't read any of them. Partly because I know medics, so I hear the stories firsthand. My mum's a nurse. Like, I've worked in the NHS. I know what it's like. Obviously not on a ward, but like, there are many other books you can read that do the exact same thing as this. And probably a lot less condescendingly. Thank you for watching, I guess. I don't know. I'll record an outro. This is too embarrassing.